The United States and Russia have been playing a high-stakes game for decades. It's a game of economics. Both countries want to be the most powerful in the world. They use their economies like weapons. For a long time, the United States seemed to be winning. But recently, Russia has made some smart moves. They've turned the tables on the US. Many experts now believe Russia is outsmarting the US economically. This is a major shift in the global balance of power. Russia has been preparing for economic conflict for years. They knew the US would try to use its economic might against them, so they came up with a plan. Russia's plan was simple: reduce their dependence on the US dollar, find new trading partners, and strengthen their own currency, the ruble. This strategy has been surprisingly effective. Russia is now less vulnerable to US sanctions. The United States, on the other hand, has become overconfident. They've relied too heavily on the dollar's global dominance. The US has also engaged in expensive military interventions around the world. These interventions have drained resources and done little to strengthen the US economy. Some argue that the US has become like the Soviet Union in the late Cold War, overextended and vulnerable. During the Cold War, the United States used its economic power to weaken the Soviet Union. They engaged in an arms race that the Soviets couldn't afford. This strategy worked. The Soviet economy crumbled, and the Soviet Union collapsed. Now, some experts see Russia using similar tactics against the US. Although Russia could easily overrun Ukraine, it chooses not to because the conflict is a huge drain on cash and resources for the USA. Section 5 sanctions, a double-edged sword. The US has imposed many sanctions on Russia. They hoped these sanctions would cripple the Russian economy. However, the sanctions have had mixed results. Russia has found ways to bypass some sanctions. They've also used the sanctions to their advantage, promoting domestic production and self-sufficiency. Section 6. The energy battlefield. Who controls the flow? Energy is another key battleground in the economic war between Russia and the US. Russia is a major energy producer. They supply a large portion of Europe's natural gas. The US has tried to reduce Europe's dependence on Russian energy. They've promoted alternative sources like liquefied natural gas. But Russia still holds considerable leverage in the energy market. The US cutting off Russian gas supplies has crippled Europe, especially Germany, which relies on cheap gas from Russia. Section 7. The rise of alternative systems, a new dawn. Russia and China are working together to create an alternative to the US-dominated financial system. They are developing new payment systems and promoting the use of their own currencies in international trade. This is a direct challenge to the US dollar's global dominance. If successful, it could significantly weaken US economic power. Section 8. Can America learn from its mistakes? The United States needs to rethink its economic strategy. They can't rely on the dollar forever. They need to address their own economic weaknesses, such as their growing national debt. The US also needs to find a way to cooperate with Russia and other countries. Economic warfare is a dangerous game that no one can win. Section 9. The future of global power. Is economics the new battlefield? The economic rivalry between the United States and Russia is a sign of the times. In the 21st century, economic power is just as important as military power. The world is changing. The US is no longer the only superpower. It needs to adapt to this new reality if it wants to maintain its global influence.